Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Azure podcast with your host Sam Foote.
And Armstrong.
If you're new here, we're a pair of Azure and Microsoft 365 focused IT security professionals. It's episode 16 of season 5. Alan and I recently had a discussion around what Microsoft released in April. Here are the things that we covered. Passkeys in Microsoft Authenticator, FIDO2 authentication in Android web browsers, and lots of Azure changes, new features and requirements. We've noticed a large number of you aren't subscribed. If you do enjoy our podcast, please do consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to us for you to show your support to the show. It's a really great episode, so let's jump in. Hey Alan, how are you doing this week?
Hey Sam, not doing too bad. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I've had a co-pilot for Security Week. I think is been a large part of my week this week.
Yeah, well, I haven't had too much exposure to some of that, but yeah, it's definitely the talking point of last month and continuing on, isn't it?
Yeah, I think as of recording, we're a month from GA, aren't we? It's a month old. Happy birthday!
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely seeing more people starting to talk about it, and I think validating it and sort of pushing it to its limits is really what we're trying to do, day to day. So, be interesting to see what the updates and changes look like for that product over the next few months.
yeah, and I think everyone's just starting to understand the licensing for it as well as the consumption
Yeah,
and things like that. There's more information has come out, hasn't it, to how
yeah,
best to use it and things like that.
yeah, and I think it's for me, it's a net new, productivity tool, really, in our security space. So it's it's definitely taken me some time to get my head around it, um, and to prompt correctly. I would say, that's a big part for me is being specific enough and really refining prompts and building prompt books. So yeah, but I've had some really good calls with sort of Microsoft product team. They're hot on it. It's the big thing at the moment. So they've been absolutely rapid at getting back to us with any of our queries and questions. So yeah, fair play to Microsoft Teams for helping us with that.
Yeah, there was something around. There's some community CCP sort of engagements around it, but one of the sort of things which I can talk about because it wasn't necessarily private preview was that it's the prompting part, as you said, is key, and a lot of us have got used to um, searching in search engines and just typing keywords to get the results you need, kind of thing, without any context. And now, with co-pilots and generative AI in general, you kind of now have to give some context about what you're looking for to make it more specific, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's you know with any sort of um, natural language LLM based tool, I think uh, giving it as much context as possible, and being as specific as you possibly can will yield you the best results, you know, and it's not so much of an issue with 365 Copilot because if you're not specific enough in your prompt and you don't get the data back that you need, then you can just tweak it, go again. It also offers you some prompts about what to maybe change, what you should ask next. um, but in Security Copilot, I think because of the way that it's built, I think it's really important to be really specific, and to be sort of cautious with how um, wide, you know, widely scoped your request is, if that makes sense. I think it's really important to narrow down and be very specific in what it is that you want to, return back. The counter to that is there is an element of learning the tool, understanding it. Um, but I think if you're going into Copilot for security thinking that it's just going to be an out of the box turn on, go without some level of skilling up, learning how to do that, then I think it's not going to work well. But I think that's also true for a lot of Copilot products. You need to know um, what to ask it to get the best results.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um,
Right,
yeah.
what are we talking about this week, Alan?
Well, it's our news episode, isn't it, for April? And I can't believe it's episode 16. Is
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
It
and we're
seems mad. That's like no, that's in our normal, last year or the year before sort of terms. That's over 3/4 of the way through for a season. Not this time. We're going all
no,
the way, aren't we?
yeah, exactly, yeah. So yeah, this news is updates kind of in April because sometimes we pull things in. I don't think we've pulled anything in for another month. I know we talk about Copilot for Security going GA last month, even though it was technically April. So we do bend the rules a little bit. But I know mine are all April only.
Yeah, yeah. I have brought one to light again. This thing because
Love
it's too cool to talk about last. To
that's
not leave out.
that's all
Uh,
cool. The rules are meant to be there to be
Broken.
broken.
Yeah, bended.
Yeah. Cool. Do you want to kick us off, Alan, with your updates?
Yep. Okay. So one good one around Defender for Cloud is that the Defender for Containers that was going into AWS and GCP is now generally available. So it means that protecting those the Kubernetes, the containers in those environments now, like I said, is generally available. It's not in public preview anymore. So that's quite good. Um, kind of going back on what I said last time, Defender XDR and the unified security operations platform. So bringing in Defender XDR alongside Microsoft Sentinel. So bringing Sentinel into that portal. We're starting to see a couple of our customers now, starting to do that, so they can query against Defender XDR tables when they're hunting, alongside the ones in Sentinel. So you can just do a query, query against the tables, there and right there. So that seems quite powerful because there's a lot of data from the Defender XDR products, going in there, especially Defender for Endpoint. There's so many logs in there. So to be
Can
able to
I
query all of that
can I ask you what
alongside your,
your? Oh, sorry, go on now. Yeah, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, just it's quite powerful to do against your other non-Microsoft feeds, like your firewalls, things like that. See where IPs are being used. Yeah,
What do you think about the actual Sentinel interface in with Unified? Because I enabled it, and when you go into like the Sentinel sort of section, it asks you to like search. The interface is very different. It's not, from what I've seen, it's not just like I framed the Sentinel workspace
no,
in, right? It's all, there's elements of it, but it's definitely like a new interface, isn't it?
yeah, they've definitely done a lot of um, adapting to the portal. Upgrading some of the areas to the portal. You're right. Some of the bits are brought over, but really, I think it is just pulling from the Sentinel sort of, I guess, the APIs, the data there directly, and then re-engineering it into the view to bring it in. I think
Do,
it's definitely been doing that, and it's
do you
good that they're
th-
bringing in the analytic rules. Your connectors, all that sort of stuff. It's all tied in now, so you can. I think you can do a lot of it now from that portal without needing to go to the other one. There's probably still a few things.
do you think it's the sort of the Defender analysts pulling data from sources from Sentinel more than the other way around? The main value, if you've got your like SOC analyst seam, do you think they're still going to live on Sentinel side and then jump across, to remediate Defender, or do you actually think that we're going to see, people stop using Sentinel interface in the portal?
From my sort of view of it all, and my sort of opinion, I guess. Um, I think it's going to move into the Defender XDR portal, and the reason I think that is now we're starting to do MXDR managed services, or even just internally. You're needing to. Before this was possible, you had to jump between two portals. To see the raw data from your firewall, to see if there's activity there, or even from Azure activity, or Office 365 activity at that point. This is now allowing you to say, I'm seeing this weird activity on Office 365. I can now query the IPs, coming, what machine is it coming from, or are we seeing other machines accessing those IPs, or something like that. It's definitely moving into having more data available to you to be able to do your queries, to do your continue hunting. I think, yeah, that's what I think is going to
Yeah,
happen.
and are you sort of seeing that the vast majority of Sentinel like SIEM customers are connecting Microsoft log sources anyway, right? So even if they do have other vendor logs going into Sentinel, it still makes sense to have it in you know Defender, because you've got more context. Even if you're not looking after EDR potentially.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's always been a question is, for Sentinel, has been bringing in the raw logs from Defender for Endpoint, because there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of networking information there, and that's useful to build analytic rules, queries, hunting, etc. But there's always been the restriction of cost, because there is so much data there. It could be, if you're a large organization, it could be looking at 10, 15, 20 gigs a day of data, which is quite a lot of money to have when it's sat in, Defender XDR, in effect, including the price for, the services. And that if you wanted to query, you have to basically switch portals. In effect, now this is allowing you to do it in the same portal, because it's the interface allows you to cross query against the two data sources quite easily as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, having a single, unified place for it, seems to make 100% sense to me. From security perspective, I assume at some point we'll just have, well, what we have, we'll have entry.microsoft.com, security.microsoft.com, and compliance.microsoft.com at some point, I assume. Just three portals for the three different areas, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Defender for cloud incidents and alerts now can feed into. You can now view them in Defender XDR, and I think as well you can see the attack surface reductions and things like that in there. So it becomes part of that exposure management side
Yeah,
of things,
it's all
feeding
in
that.
one place. Yeah, one single
Mm.
unified place. That's great.
So yeah, that's why that one came back again this month. Um, and then really the next sort of area for me is really around Entra. So there's quite a lot of Entra updates in April. I think it was like 8 or 9. So I just grabbed a snapshot of some of them. So one of them is being able to, when you're accessing Entra application or signing into Entra, you can now do FIDO2 authentication in an Android browser. So that is in Chrome and Edge. So that's quite good. So that means that if you've got a FIDO2 key that is compatible, to be able to be read by Android, either plugging it in or NFC. This allows you to passwordly sign into your 365 environment, which adds another potential blocker for passwords. at that point. So that's one of them. Sort of carry on with passwordless. Microsoft released in public preview the use of passkeys in Microsoft Authenticator. So again, in effect, a software-based rather than hardware sort of FIDO2 mechanism using Microsoft Authenticator for passkeys. We are seeing now a lot of that's really good for Microsoft Entra and organizations. But generally, I've been seeing a lot of other SaaS applications now supporting passkeys. I've seen Google, Gmail, I think Facebook's now using it, and I think even like GitHub, I think you can now use it. So definitely starting to see passkeys being used more often now. One thing that I didn't know about, which is quite interesting, because I have had some customers talk about this, but general availability of the ability in the Azure mobile app to approve and activate PIM roles, privileged identity management roles, on your phone, which I thought was
That's
interesting.
that's going to be very handy.
Yeah, because I thought about this, and I guess actually going to the Azure portal page is probably quite may not be user friendly in some forms. I don't know. I've never tried it, and then trying to do a role.
It must
Um,
be. It must be at least like 6-8 clicks, mustn't it? And
yeah,
a search sometimes, unless you've bookmarked it like on your homepage.
yeah, exactly. So having having the Azure app, and I'm guessing the Azure app is probably app protection policy enabled. I assume I'll have to double check that. So it's protected environment. So it means that you can go in there and approve any requests, I guess, that you've got from your team or from from your organization, or actually activate yourself. Um, so yeah, I thought that was quite a good one.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Um, we've also got the general availability of Microsoft Graph activity logs, so that you can feed that into Microsoft Sentinel, and that is showing the interactions with Microsoft Graph. So if you've got SaaS applications or in-house applications that are using Graph to pull data, that's now auditable. Um, in the logs there, so you can now either send those into another seam, and then maybe detect activity that way. So I think that's quite powerful as well. I know it was in private preview and public preview recently, but now it's now GA, so that's good. And then the last one is around security group provisioning. So there was some previews with the Entra Connect Sync to do group write back version 2. It might have been called, I think. That's now been deprecated. So that was announced quite some time ago that it was going to be deprecated. But Microsoft, in effect, replaced it with this capability into the Cloud Sync connector. So the one that's all cloud based. So the ability to provision security groups from Entra into Active Directory. So allowing you to start to allow Entra to be the master of the groups, in effect. So mastering the groups and then dropping them down into Entra. So that's quite key as well. It's another sort of good one to do, because that means you can do dynamic groups, I think, in Entra to automatically populate them, and then they get populated on-prem. In theory, I've not tested that, but I guess that's a win for that part. And then that's kind of it from me. There were a few others in there, but that's the ones that caught my eye with it. So how about you, Sam, in Azure?
Okay. So first one is as a public preview for Azure Backup long-term retention for MySQL Flexible Server. So you can now support retaining backups up to 10 years. Um, you know, lots of customers have long-term retention policies dependent on the industry they're in. So having more flexible backup options, and I assume that Microsoft wants you to retain backups for as long as possible anyway. So yeah, that is now in public preview.
Cool.
Um, I can't remember which month it was, but I talked previously about the Azure API Management Developer Portal got a refresh. That is now GA as of the 1st of April. So there's a new layout with sort of easier management. I think it's quality of life improvements there, and I believe it works on multiple form factors now. So yeah, so there's a UI refresh that's gone GA on that side. Okay, and with shortly after that update, we also got um, Azure API Management new V2 tiers for pricing. Um, so I don't know if you remember, Alan, but API management pricing there was one, two, three, four, five, six SKUs for what they're now calling classic tiers. It went all the way from consumption based cost all the way through to isolated sort of environments, and premium I think is about nearly $3,000 a month, something like that. V2 is a slightly different pricing model, and it's a lot more simplified. There's basic and standard. Basic is $150 a month starting, um, and it gives you one sort of scale unit basically for requests. I haven't actually taken a look at it. I'm just sort of describing you guys through it. And you're paid by scale out units for sort of traffic, and also you are charged per API request as well. So you get 10 million API requests included, and $3 per 1 million additional API requests. Um, and then dependent on if you go basic or standard, for standard you get things like multiple custom domain names, virtual network support. But standard is $700 a month base, $500 a month per scale out unit, and then $2.50 per 1 million additional API requests. I haven't seen about retirement um, of the old plans. I've just seen the new ones, so I think it's something that needs to be investigated because from what I can see, consumption. Um, there's no consumption based billing anymore for that. For lightweight testing.
Yeah.
The classic tiers are still listed, but I think because they've referred to them as classic tiers, um, I don't know. Spidey senses are slightly concerned that that might be retired.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely need to look at that.
There's a GA for Postgres PostgreSQL flexible server now with Azure Private Link support. So yeah, it basically gives you private network access to what's the best way of describing it? To effectively give you a managed connectivity endpoint, for other services. That gives you better security and isolation. That's really good to see that functionality is baked into that product now. Another one, a lot of database related ones that I picked out this time. There's been a GA for Elastic Jobs in Azure SQL database. What this allows you to do is it allows you to run a TSQL job, which it used to be called a stored procedure to me back in the day, but it's called a TSQL, transact SQL job. But you can schedule these. So you can sort of automate management tasks like deploying schema changes, index rebuilding, and collecting telemetry data from the databases. or the database servers, I should say, probably. You can effectively do anything that you can do in TSQL store procedure. So you can move data, aggregate data, those types of things on a job. So yeah, that's really I hadn't that had completely that had completely missed me. Um, to be totally honest with you. Um, the only thing I don't have to hand is any pricing on that side. So there is a screenshot in the blog post that I've got on screen of an Elastic Job Agent costing $25 a month. So I assume you run an agent alongside to actually orchestrate the processing of that. But cool feature. Definitely something that's really important for sort of database data layer folk. And the last one I just wanted to call out is app service environments. Versions 1 and 2 will be retired on the 31st of August 2024. So that's just something to make everybody aware of that. It's worth calling out that the messaging from Microsoft is that after the 31st of August 2024, App Service Environments 1, version 1 and 2, and the applications running on them will be deleted and any data associated with them will be lost. So,
Yeah.
just calling that
Okay.
out, that you should complete your migrations if you have those in your environment. I think we should probably put out like a message to some of our customers to check. So yeah, just a call out there if you're using any of those app service environments.
Yeah, they announced it in August 2021, didn't they? So it's been 3 years. So
Yeah,
not to say that it's
they've had
announced
long enough.
sometimes. Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, and that's pretty much it from me. This month, not that there wasn't a lot of updates, there just weren't a lot of updates that I was personally that excited about, unfortunately. So yeah, just a few updates from Azure this month.
No, that's cool. I think the only one I had that was additional to mine around Defender for Cloud was, let me find it quickly. I think it was on the second page? Just the general availability of Defender for Cloud protective workloads against Azure database for MySQL flexible server as well. So I think you mentioned about flexible server going GA for was that net private network or private endpoint, wasn't it?
Was it MySQL or Postgres that you're talking about?
I'm talking about MySQL.
Yeah, that was backup retention, Azure backup.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that was the only one I seen. Quickly skimming the vast amount of updates in Azure. I mean, it's just crazy. There's 2 pages just general availability, let alone the public previews and stuff.
Yeah, crazy.
Cool. Okay. So Sam, what's your next episode? What are we doing next week?
Next week we are talking about Azure Data Box. Alan, ever used it?
Never heard of it, to be fair.
That's why I picked it. This one's going to be great. Azure Data Box. Have you got a large amount of data that you need to move to Azure? Do you have a very slow internet connection? Well, Azure Data Box could help. Not going to give you any more than that, but I I picked this one because as as I as I was trying to pick at the next episode, I was starting to look. I was like, oh, I've never seen what Databox is, and then the more that I read through, like the learn pages on it, because it's definitely not a service I've ever used or will probably ever use. It just got more ridiculous as I read. in a good way. So that's why I picked it for next week. It should be a good episode.
Okay. Yeah, that will be interesting because I do know about some of that high level migration to Azure and maybe 365 kind of stuff. How you may do it in the past, probably 6-7 years ago. So
Okay.
that will be interesting. Cool. Okay. So did you enjoy this episode? If so, please do consider leaving us a review on Apple or Spotify. This really helps us reach more people like yourselves. If you do have any specific feedback or suggestions, we have a link in our show notes to get in contact with us.
Yeah, and if you've made it this far, thanks ever so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks all.